Good morning, foliage family. My name is Romani, the mother of leafy boys, and today I'm going to be doing a bit of a planty reset. I'm going to be prepping my plants for spring, getting ready for the new growing season, and I'm also going to be giving some tips and tricks for those that are going to be moving into winter. So today is going to be a bit of mixture of tips and tricks along with some plant chores as well. I'm mostly going to be doing the plant chores as I'm talking about the tips. Specifically, I want to talk about, on reflection, some things that I should have done moving into winter and some things that I always do when I'm moving into the colder season for those in the Northern Hemisphere who I know are going to be heading into autumn and winter now. And for everyone that is on the Southern Hemisphere with me, I'm going to be doing some plant chores that I do when I'm coming out of winter and moving into spring, and the care that I usually do in preparation for that growing season. So firstly, let's start off with some winter tips. I'm going to give you these tips while showing you some of my plants, just to give you an idea of like where my collection is at now that I'm at the end of winter and we're seeing pretty much all of the damage of winter. So I think on reflection, I made it pretty well through this winter season. To give you a bit of background, I live in Brisbane, Australia, Queensland, which means that my winters are probably a lot warmer than most people's winters. I don't have any chance of snow. We had a couple of moments where we had a bit of frosty mornings, and I did lose some leaves due to the cold weather. Specifically out on my veranda, some plants are looking pretty sad at the moment, but I know that they will come back in spring. It's just that they got quite cold over winter, and this was actually the first year that a lot of my plants lived out on a veranda. I've never really had this many plants living outside before, so it was definitely a learning curve for how to take care of my plants and how to really prep my plants for the winter time. The first biggest tip that I think I could have is start slowing down your watering sooner rather than later. And this is advice to me as well. I ran into a lot of rot very early on in winter because I didn't adapt my watering schedule. And I do this every year. I think my brain just gets so used to the system and the consistent watering that my plants need in summer, because in summer it's very hot and I can water essentially on a schedule because of how hot my house is. But in winter, some days are warmer, some days are hotter, some days are colder. Like it's always chopping and changing. Sometimes there's really high humidity, sometimes there's not a lot of humidity, and I will need to water my plants more often or less often, just depending on that week's weather. Because of that, I was just watering my plants and not really checking the soil, and a lot of my plants ended up rotting, and I did lose a couple of plants this winter as well. My suggestion is always to stick your finger into the soil until you reach your first knuckle, depending if it's a small or big pot. If it's a bigger pot, you might want to put it all the way down to your, end of your finger if you possibly can, and see if the top third of your soil is completely dried out before you water it again. That's just a general rule of thumb. Some plants want to be completely dried out before you water them. Some plants want to stay a little bit more moist, but general rule of thumb that I go by is if I can shove my finger into the soil up to the first knuckle and it is dry, then I will water that plant. The second tip that I would have is think about drafts, open doors, windows that open up, any areas where you think that in spring, it might be a lovely breeze for the plant, but in winter becomes just the plant's worst nightmare. An example of this is my poor Anthurium clarinervium that sits by my front door and looks a mess right now. Granted, it is currently going through a transfer to pon, and I did that in winter, which is not the best time to be transferring your plants into pon. But it's also constantly getting a breeze from the front door. It's one of the coldest spots in the house, and I've just really done this plant dirty. If that was a more expensive plant or a plant that I really cared about the way that it looked, it could have been really bad. So I am kind of glad it was my clarinervium, because I trust that it will come back eventually and it will look lush and beautiful once again. But I do feel pretty bad for essentially just neglecting that plant. This next one I feel is so important, and I really only clocked it this year. I think I might have been doing it naturally, but I just didn't quite understand why I was doing it or why it was working. And it wasn't until I had plants growing out on the veranda and I was really feeling the effect of those cold nights that I realized this is how I should be watering. Water in winter during the day and water in spring and summer towards the evening and towards nighttime. In summer, if you water during the day, especially during the hottest parts of your day, it's almost like boiling your plant alive. I don't know if your house gets this hot, but if my plant is getting direct light, the water inside that pot is just gonna turn into literally like a boiling soup. If you have water on the leaves, it can also, because of the reflection of the light, it can also burn parts of the leaves. There's just so many reasons why I think it's not the best to water your plants during the hottest part of the day. It is just going to cause more damage than good. In winter, it's the opposite. I was still watering at nighttime and I found that it made all of the winter issues worse. The water was cold on the leaves, and because there was no light to warm the plant up, the water just made it even colder for those plants, and the plant couldn't soak it all up, and because it wasn't hot enough, the water wasn't evaporating very fast, so I'd find that a lot more water was left in the pot after I watered it. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but I felt like if I watered during the day in winter, it had more time, heat, and energy to absorb all of that water during the day. It meant that less water was left at the bottom of the pot, and it wasn't trying to battle the cold, frosty water on a cold, frosty night. It just gave it a better opportunity to drink that water and absorb that water in a way that was more comfortable for the plant. And I think my final winter tip simply has to be to accept getting yellow leaves. I think it's unrealistic to assume that you're going to make it through winter without losing any leaves whatsoever, especially if you have alocasias, especially if you've been a bit iffy with your watering. I think that's okay. It's okay to lose those leaves. I went to the Botanic Gardens recently and there were so many yellow leaves over winter, even in the Botanic Gardens where they're getting pretty much the best environment physically possible, they still had a bunch of yellow leaves. It's just what happens. It's how plants grow. As they're getting new leaves or as they're producing roots or whatever they're doing, they might need to take the energy from that leaf in order to do so. It's the way. So I had a couple of plants that got some yellow leaves and I was pretty devastated. But at the end of the day, that's what happens. I actually got quite a few yellow leaves. I think this season more yellow leaves than I've ever gotten before. But I think my plants look pretty healthy overall, and I don't think you'd be able to tell that I've been through what I would call one of my roughest winters. All right, so now we're going to be moving on to more of the propagation and repotting section, and I'll be giving my tips on general springtime plant care as I am actually doing my repotting. I'm also trying out some new products today, which I'm really excited about. Plant Runner sent me over some products to give a trial of and give a taste and see if I like them. So I thought today would be a really good day to try them out. So right now I've got one of their big aeroid soil mixes, which I'm pretty keen to open up and have a look at. That was so loud. This is the one that I'm most excited about. It's Soil Micro Booster, which I'm hoping will just give a lot of these plants a little bit of nutrients and a little bit of a boost as we're coming into spring, because a lot of these plants, they did get fertilized over winter, but they didn't get fertilized as much as they used to over the spring and growing seasons. But now that I'm repotting them and prepping them for spring, I thought it'd be a really good idea just to give them some healthy soil. I truly think that the tip to the best plants is actually just starting out by having really healthy, strong soil and root systems. If you want beautiful leaves, you've got to start with a thing that is supporting the leaves, which is the roots. I also have a couple of other things that I might trial today. So I've got some indoor food. I think I might put a little bit of this in the water when I water the plants through after repotting them. And some neem oil spray. I'm just going to be keeping an eye out for pests. Even though I'm coming out of winter and pests were sort of like less present in my collection, there were still a couple of occasions where I had some spider mites. So I am going to keep my eye out, and if I need to use it, I will. I'm hoping I don't need to actually use any neem oil today, because I don't think any of them have spider mites currently. We will see. I'm also going to have a code and also a link below that you can click on if you would like a little bit of a percentage off of any of the Plant Runner products that I'm going to be using today. So let's start off by actually cutting open this soil and having a peek of what it looks like. I feel like I'm going to get covered in dirt today. So I've actually got a scoop now so that I'm not constantly like shoving my hand into soil or using these tiny little scoops. So thank you, Planti Peeps. Planti Peeps sent me these ones. Oh, okay. I like the looks of the soil. I'm just going to check what's actually in it. Maybe it will say on the bag. So it's got orchid bark, perlite, cocoa peat, and compost. So it says it has horticultural charcoal in it as well, which is great. That's something I always chuck in my mix. Neem granules. That's interesting. So maybe it will be good at like preventing getting mealybugs or like root mealies and stuff like that. That's kind of exciting. Cocoa peat, large chunks of orchid bark, and composted plant matter, which would have like a good, like a pretty good microbiome of its own as well to have like compost in there. So I really like this. If I was going to be putting up some of my like really chunky mixes, I would just grab a bag of bark and then add this, because it's got everything else I would use in it. I would just make it a little bit more chunky for some of my plants. This is actually the perfect soil for the ones that I'm doing today, especially these that like a little bit more water, because even though it's a chunky aeroid soil, it's got like the peat moss and stuff in it that are going to keep it pretty happy. It's funny that it also mentions gloriosum on the packet, because I'm going to be putting up a gloriosum today as well, and my Delta Force, which I believe is strangely a bit of a thirsty anthurium in comparison to some other anthuriums. So I don't think I'm going to make any amendments to this mix today. It's heavy as well. I'm so glad that they've got like massive bags for it, because I hate when you get really tiny bags and like I can pot up like 3 things before it's gone. Like I feel like I spent all this money and I managed to pot up one singular plant in that time. So I really appreciate when people sell them. This is 15 liters, when people sell them in like actual reasonable decent sized bags. Just sort of clearing the deck at this point so that I've got room to actually do my repotting. I think I'm going to start with the Delta Force just because I'm really excited to pot this one up. So I'm just going to pop it out of the little container. Oh, that has massive roots, like massive roots. That's crazy. Look how thick and chunky those roots are. That's so good. All right. Starting off strong. I have 2 cameras on me today, so hopefully you'll get some like better shots of the actual repotting. So something that I know I need to be really careful of coming into the springtime is rushing back into watering. I know I've seen a lot of sad plants recently because it's been hotter, so I haven't been watering as much, and they've been going really dry. And I think to compensate for that, I'm really scared that I'm just going to like start crazy over watering everything. So I'm going to try and be super careful when it comes to my watering. Speaking of super careful, I just broke off a root. A really chunky one. Don't break off the healthy roots. But yeah, I think I just need to be really careful not rushing into watering like a crazy person, because I'm going to end up rotting plants again, simply because I couldn't sort of pace myself and check the soil and make sure that I'm actually letting everything dry out. Also, because now they're almost going through a new cycle of acclimation, right? Like, essentially what season changes are plants acclimating to an entirely new environment. More sun, less sun, watering, all sorts of things are going to be changing now. So got to be really patient with the little ones as they're trying to adjust to the new environment. All right, so I've taken pretty much all of the sphagnum moss off. The roots look super healthy and really thick and chunky. So because how thick these roots are, I feel like I actually need to up pot quite a bit, even though I did just rip off such a big root. That's the root that I just ripped off by accident that I feel really sad about. I'd love to know how you guys prep for spring and for the growing season. Like, what are some things that are on your list every time it starts getting warm again? And you just know that that's going to be on your like first chore list as soon as it gets into spring. So I've got a couple of different clear pots. I'm in love with clear pots. I love them so much. It helps me actually monitor the soil and see when it needs to be watered and all of that fun stuff. So if you're curious where I get my clear pots from, I either get them from Bunnings or the like really nice sizes. The like these ones I get from Planti Peeps. I'll link the ones from Planti Peeps below. I think. Now, hear me out. I know that's a massive up pot, and I usually would not up pot something that intensely, but we're coming to the growing season, and those are some yuck roots. So I feel like I need to compensate for that by giving it a decent up pot. So if this was an alocasia, absolutely not. Alocasia love to be snug. So you wouldn't find me. I wouldn't dare. But for Anthurium, I don't think it's a problem. Take that first leaf off there because it's like tiny. And I can see a root coming through there, so I'm gonna sort of nestle it in. I don't want to push the roots down too much, because I just want the roots to expand. All right, I'm going to start putting it pretty low down into the pot and not filling it up the whole way. And this is because as anthuriums grow and you lose like the lower, because these leaves will eventually go because they're all so tiny, you'll end up with like the stem, and I'll just end up filling the pot up, and then those stems will grow some more roots. So I like to plant them pretty low in the pot, so it gives it an opportunity for me to, fill it up later as it grows and capture those roots. So again, I didn't fill it up the whole way. I think I just filled it up enough that there's still some space to add some more soil in later. Lovely, and I will give that a water in a little bit, and I'm going to use some of those drops in the watering container as well. That soil is really nice. It's got like a mixture of being moisture retentive without being soggy. And I'll give you an example of bad soil. It's the soil that this gloriosum is in. It's like really, really thick and sludgy, and it could live in this for longer, but I hate having really, really, really moisture retentive soil. I'm a chronic overwaterer, which is why I love spring and I hate winter, because I'm always overwatering my plants. And so if it's sitting in soil that retains moisture like a lot, just gonna end up dying. But just be warned, if you're someone who's a chronic overwaterer like me, my suggestion, no matter what soil you're using, if you're worried and the soil is staying moist for a really long time and you think that you're gonna overwater the plant, get a chunky mix. Add whatever soil you've got, add some more perlite to it, or maybe add some more charcoal, or add some more orchid bark. Just add some more chunky components to it. Like, don't be afraid to make a really chunky soil if you're someone who's known to being an overwaterer. That's my trick. Like, that's my biggest tip. I've got a reel on my page that has like my soil mix, and my soil mix is soilless and essentially just the chunky components and nothing else. I would much rather my plants dry out too fast than stay wet for too long, because staying wet for too long is such a big problem. Which is why you need chunky stuff like the charcoal and like the perlite. I really like that this is the big perlite as well. So many soil mixes give you like the tiny, tiny bits of perlite. I hate it. I feel like it does nothing. You need like the big chunky bits of perlite in your soil mix. Wow. Wow. That just, I didn't even realize that just like pulled out like there was no roots in the bottom. Yeah. Wow. They're healthy, like the roots are healthy, but that's a lot of leaves for essentially no soil. Sorry, that's a lot of leaves for essentially no roots. And like that is just clumpy soil. Okay. I'm glad I made this choice. That soil is not it. It's not it, Chief. Instead of that soil, we're going to use something a little bit more chunky. But because it's so small, I'm going to put it in an equally small container. Because Gloriosum do not like to have a heap of wiggle room when they're really small and establishing themselves. Maybe this is also why I like chunkier soils, but some soils, I just hate the texture on my hands. Like some soils just, they feel gross. That's probably a super weird thing to say, but some soils, they just feel absolutely gross on your hands. And that was one of them. That soil made me feel icky. So did not like touching it. Fabulous. All right, again, we want the plant to feel sort of relaxed into the plant. Oh, this is going to be so much nicer. One, because it's in a clear pot, it means that I'm going to be actually able to see the roots develop, which is what I want to see with such a, you know, special plant. Variegated Gloriosum, so special. But also, because it's chunkier, I'm just going to be less scared that I'm going to overwater and kill this plant. Because Gloriosum, in my experience, do not like to sit in water. They don't like to be overwatered in general. That's just what I found in growing them. So I just feel like I'm going to feel safer growing it in this soil than I was growing it in the other soil. Every time I watered it, I felt like I was going to have like a nervous breakdown every single time I watered it, because I was like, was it ready? Is it actually ready to be watered? Which led to some of the leaves actually curling because I was putting off watering for so long because I was so nervous. So yeah, I think this is just going to save my brain by putting it in a chunkier soil where I know that I know what this soil feels like when it's wet and when it's dry. Even though this is my first time using it, it's very similar to the soil that I use it most of the time. So I think I'll know when it needs to be watered now. and feel confident in that water. So, oh, yeah, cool. Okay, I love that. Perfect. So, pot it up. It's got some nice healthy roots. Hopefully, now that it's got a clear pot, I'm actually going to be able to see when it needs to be watered and see where the roots are at with the plant. But honestly, I just think that is such a stunning plant. All right. And because the soil was so moist before I pot it into this, I think I'm going to just give it like a really light drizzle of water, but I'm not going to fully rewater it. So this is the time where I'm also going to start fertilizing my plants a little bit more as well, because I'm sort of giving them that energy boost and saying like, hey, it's time to feel, you know, encouraged to grow new roots. It's time to feel encouraged to grow new foliage. So this is the time where I will start upping how much I am fertilizing my plants, because again, I don't completely stop fertilizing during winter. I just sort of slow down on the fertilizing. I will stop completely only if it's a plant that's gone dormant. Then I'll stop fertilizing at that point. So this plant I am repotting because the glass jar actually broke, very sadly. I don't think I have anything to put it into, I've just realized. I'm gonna have to go grab a container. Yeah, I'll go grab a container. But the glass jar broke, so just for safety, because it's like a raw edge now, I'm going to actually pot it, which is probably super happy with. Bunnings is the company that put it into the glass jar, which is not the best way to grow this kind of plant. It is not happy, and it's never been happy. I just couldn't be bothered to like rescue it from this style of pot. So let me go grab an actual pot. I feel like I can actually hear this plant sighing in relief as I go and grab it a pot, because it is so root bound in here, and I watered it a lot purely so I thought I could be able to wiggle it out easier. So it's well overwatered, but this was intentional so that I could get it out of the pot without breaking the roots. So that's why it was sitting in so much water. That's ridiculous. Maybe I shouldn't have put quite so much water, but it's only been sitting in it since this morning. So it's not the end of the world. Don't you hate when your nose gets itchy when you're repotting plants and you know that you can't touch your face? Okay. Now, let's start off with the fact that all of the stems in the center have died back, but I was gonna pull it apart. Oh my gosh. I'm just getting plants. I think there's actually, don't know if you can see it. No. In the center there's actually a lot of healthy growth points. So I think it will bush itself out once it's repotted. So I don't think I'm actually going to pull it apart like I was going to do. Some other things that I plan on doing now that we're entering into spring is chopping and propping a lot of my plants. Not like chop and extends, though I will end up probably doing that at some point this spring, but more like chopping the really long ends of my hanging plants off and starting to get those into water to propagate, because even though it's still not quite, like right now it's not quite spring just yet, it gives it the full spring to actually grow its roots, and if you chop them earlier, you're going to encourage the original plant to also start to put out new growth points and sort of, yeah, spur it on to get started on growing some new leaves and some new stems. I think I need to sink this down a little bit more. I don't know. Yeah, just a little bit. Just a little bit. There we go. It was like a violent toss back into the pot. All right. Yeah, I'm hoping the center of that plant will actually start to like sprout, but I can see they're not dead. There are still active, healthy growth points in there. So I don't know if my framing has slightly changed, but my camera just turned itself off because it is overheating, which, I mean, tell me that you're heading into spring again without telling me you're heading into spring. It is not that hot. I'm wearing a jumper, but my camera does not like the heat, especially if I've been recording for a while. And I think I've been recording for about an hour now. So potentially that's why it's overheating. So I do have a backup camera up to the side, so hopefully you didn't miss too much during that time, but that one is not recording audio, so ooh, no idea what is missing from that, and potentially it's going to turn off again if it feels that it is overheating still. There we go, big up pot, room to grow. Hopefully this plant will thank me in the end, and I think I'm going to end up planting it in the garden because I don't know, I just think it would be much happier if it could just grow into a big bushy plant in the garden. This next one, I'm so nervous. I'm like stupidly nervous about it. It's these. So obviously they don't look happy. They are Discoria discolors, and obviously they go dormant. So coming towards the end of winter, they are obviously in dormancy, ready to sort of come out of dormancy and start growing. Mine didn't go into complete dormancy. They didn't lose every single leaf, which they can. They could just go back to being little potatoes in a pot, but they didn't, thankfully. A lot of people will just take them to that point. I am nervous about what that means for the plant. Like, I'm nervous about restoring it back to its glory if I have to do that from a pot of nothing. So I like that it didn't end up being a pot of absolutely nothing. I'm just going to take out my little moisture readers. They're the only moisture readers that I like using are ones like this. I don't like those big metal ones that you put in. So this one is like a rocky point one, and this one's a susty. I use them both, but essentially they just read the moisture of the soil, and they don't do it electronically. So there's no batteries or anything like that. I prefer these kinds of moisture readers, and I only put them into plants that I know that I will underwater or overwater a lot. So I don't put them in every single pot. I've got some scissors, so I'm just going to trim off some bits and bobs that aren't looking too crash hot. Again, trimming it, so hopefully it's going to encourage it to grow. I think I can just trim both of these ends off because they just, I don't know, they don't look great. I feel like the camera's going to turn off soon because I can see the little overheating sign on it. I'm so sorry, camera. I swear it's like 20 degrees. That's it. Celsius. Whatever. Right. Ooh. Okay. Taking off the trellis because I've also got a trellis that hangs on the wall, and like that's where it's going to end up crawling up. But I heard a ripping of roots, which gives me encouragement that there's actually a really strong root system already inside the pot, which is fabulous. So it's going to end up going in this pot here. and a plastic pot inside of it. It's not the right size, so I'm just going to cut the top off the plant pot. Oh, that was violent. And now I've got a sort of line where I'm going to cut to. Pretty uneven. I feel like I'm infinitely chopping now. Oh no, it can go down by more. Okay. Wish there was an easier way to cut things that are round. I feel like it's close enough. It's close enough. I'm gonna take like this tiny bit off of here. That's like pointy. Okay. Okay, I feel like I've got enough like microplastics around the house now. Okay. Yes. And I don't know if you can see, but that doesn't actually sit directly on the bottom because it fits so tightly. There's actually going to be like a little reservoir at the bottom where it doesn't like quite sit all the way at the bottom. I don't know if you can actually tell if I can put it at an angle, but it doesn't sit all the way at the bottom, which is exactly what I wanted because I want to create a reservoir at the bottom. This plant does not like to dry out, but it also does not like to sit in water. So this is my solution instead of a self-watering pot, because I don't know, I probably should have gotten a self-watering pot, but I didn't want to. That's my best answer. I didn't want to. So now I'm not. All right, let's do it. Whew. So I probably should have done this a couple of weeks ago, to be honest, instead of waiting until it's like about to turn spring. But plants like this that sort of go through a stage of dormancy, they really, they like a bit of a repot before it gets into the growing season. It almost like tells them, hey, it's time to wake up. It's time to start growing now. So I think these plants will just absolutely love this growing season. I also feel like I never give it enough soil. These are such small pots, so I feel like there's always potential for them to grow so much bigger, but because I put them in such small pots, I just don't give them that opportunity to really like thrive and take off and become these big, beautiful, lush plants. So this year I'm trying something new and I'm giving them more room to turn into beautiful, stunning, lush plants. Let's see how it goes. Look at these massive potatoes at the bottom. Wow. Wow. Okay, so there are some massive potatoes growing at the bottom of this plant. I wonder if they're too far down to actually sprout. It's possible. There's some dead roots in here, but I don't want to disturb them too much. She says turning it over and the soil just flops absolutely everywhere. Amazing. That is most definitely a dead root. Yeah, that's most definitely a dead root. All right. Wow. Yeah, okay. This, I think, is going to be a big plant this year. I think I can really turn this into a big plant this year. As long as I give it a bigger pot to grow into, I think it's going to be super happy. This one, I heard a bunch of roots sort of crackle when I pulled the support stem out. So I feel like there should be a fairly good support system in here too. Yay! Okay. There are heaps of, oh my gosh, move plant, move plant. Heaps of potatoes in there. Yay! I'm getting soil everywhere. Yeah, there's a couple of dead ones in here. But again, it was winter. That is fine. That makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna put it this way because I feel like there's more potatoes towards the center there. Take some of these potatoes out so I can place them. I don't know why I'm calling them potatoes. That's not the correct term. So I'm sorry I am calling them potatoes, but not potatoes. Okay. Just gonna take that off. So I just realized it's a lot of the old soil and I really want to replace it with some like newer, better soil. Because it also has like a lot of rotting roots in it, so it's not the best thing. Okay. Potatoes go inwards. And I don't want to keep too much dead roots in there, to be completely honest with you, because that's just asking for like rot and ick to grow. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna risk it and I'm gonna pull some out. All right, so they're all potted up now. I'm gonna do like my final little steps. So first things first, I'm going to use a little bit of this soil micro booster and I'm just gonna sprinkle some on the top. I think I could also sprinkle some like in the soil, but like mix it in with the soil. But I think for now I'm just going to sprinkle some on top. Oh, yeah, there's like so much stuff in here. So I'm just going to sprinkle. Keep in mind, it's a little smelly. So, but I mean, that's because it's got so many yum stuff for the plants in it, but like it's a bit stanky. I think like once it's wafted in with the plants, you're not going to smell it, but most like natural fertilizers have a bit of a stank to them. And then when I water, I'll sort of like water it into the pot. There you go, buddy. Just a little bit of yummy yum. But I think, again, this is the best time for me to start like running around and chucking like a little bit of this on top of some of the plants that I'm really going to try and encourage to grow nice, big and strong this spring. And because I'm using that, I don't want to use very much of this. I think I could probably just go without using it at all, but I want to give it a bit of a go. So I'm going to put it in anyway. Just the tiniest little bit. You need 1 milliliter for 1 liter. So yeah, a couple of drops is actually pretty much how much I should use anyway. So for those that are with me and we're all heading into that beautiful spring season where our plants are all going to start growing big and beautiful again, just remember, start fertilizing a little bit more, start trying to give them that little bit of boost that they might need to start their growing season. You might want to start moving plants around as the sun is changing direction in the window. You might want to change around where your plants are living in your home. Just remember that we do flip-flop in Australia. We do go from cold to warm and cold to warm, especially in spring. Ease in to your watering as we're heading into that warmer season. All right, so I think they're all watered. I think those are all the chores that I'm going to get done today. If you have any more tips and tricks that you want to leave for us, please drop them in the comments below. But that is going to be all from me today. If you made it this far, can you please give me a little sun emoji for the upcoming warmer seasons that we're heading into? Do all the YouTubey things, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!